How do you view therapy?
Through a jaundiced eye. That's the best I can say. I think therapy's fine to a point. I think it's good therapy. You should get over it. You should get through it and say, somebody should finally say, yeah, I think we've done enough here. You're welcome to go out back into the world and move on. Get on with your life. In the old days, you'd talk to an English person, it's therapy? Therapist? Isn't that what friends are for? And you'd think, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, you gotta have people you can touchstones in your life where you can talk things through. I certainly did do some therapy in time, and I think it was helpful to a point. It's nice to have that outlet for ideas, but once you learn through a certain series of coping mechanisms or whatever, how to reflect on things and not take it always so personally, that's certainly a skill you should be able to master yourself.
So just talking about personality, for a long time, you said you felt like you were always letting people down. Why?
From time to time, what happens in a relationship with people is they start to have expectations of you that maybe are unrealistic. And I know that I've spent time in relationships where I thought, why am I not good enough? Why is this not working out so well? Why am I suddenly being told I didn't do my job today? That sort of thing has happened to me in the past. And when I realized that I probably was okay, and maybe the issue was that they didn't want me to be okay. I'm not really sure.
And even dating back to when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, I actually thought that I was letting people down, that I thought I just wasn't quite good enough. It didn't quite hit the mark a lot of the time. And maybe that was just out of a feeling that I had to be perfect, that maybe we all have that a little bit. I was letting myself down sometimes. I started to develop certain sort of small goals. I used to tell some of my friends, I said, well, set a goal for yourself that's realistic that day, and do it. Make sure you get that one done, because then you won't have a sort of a tradition of feeling like, I didn't do this today, I didn't do that today. But make them small. I'm gonna plant a window box today. So make sure you do it. Simple things, and I think that helps you kind of get a sense of self-respect.
And if something wasn't your fault, you said you had a way of making it your fault?
Making it my fault, yeah, right. Making it of sort of engineering some sort of a bizarre way into thinking, somehow I'm responsible for that. Yeah, no, those are the problems of a man that I am no longer that man.
You said you were attracted to threshold experiences, insanity,
I'm still attracted to that.
Man.
I mean, I think I find people fascinating who are in that, state, because that state's an ecstatic state, and one that's even if it's perilous or bad for somebody, it's still attractive in a weird way. So yeah, sometimes I found people who were in sort of crisis more attractive than I would someone who was doing okay.
Tell about I'm shocked that you were open about the tattoo that you got.
For Kayte. Oh no. Well, that's just. She said this is something we actually have we both joke about. She just one time we were sitting there and she said, "Would you ever, put my name on your body like this, a tattoo?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" So we both said it should be out of sight, so it's somewhere near, it crossed our minds. It'd be funny to sort of say if I happened to be cheating, someone would say, property of, but also, or it could be, with compliments, your hostess this evening, courtesy of Kayte.
All right, so married 4 times. What do you think you learned from past relationships that's helped you as you've grown as a person?
In terms of I like to think of that married 3 times basically, was once, because that was the same person in different bodies. There was a pattern that I fell into where people that somehow I thought I could help their life be better, help them come to another place somehow, and then I realized it wasn't my business. And when I finally stopped doing that, and realized that people had to just love me for who I was, and maybe be a partner, and maybe even like me. That's where some of that other stuff maybe came in.
What was that person that you were attracted to?
I think some of it had to do with always picking people that you could never satisfy. Maybe that's some of what I was talking about before. In terms of Kayte's the most mature person I've ever been with. She happens to be younger than anybody else I've ever been with in terms of a fully committed relationship. But the others they were part of the step. But there were 3 women that were very similar, and the issue was the same issue. And
abusive
I like to think,
too, right?
Yeah, well, one certainly very abusive, but I like to think of the lesson being, I finally realized that wasn't what I wanted. It just took me 3 times to figure it out.
Why, when you were in the abuse, did you tolerate it?
That's an interesting question.
And this is
those people who are abused. I was physically abused in my second
black
marriage.
Eye,
Yeah, right.
glass
Black
broken
eyes
on
and
you,
glass broken,
gun fired
all kinds
at
of
you,
stuff. Yeah,
life threatened.
crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Once it happens, this is apparently some sort of a kind of a syndrome, I guess, or something that's identifiable with people who've been abused. You just kind of assume it's your fault, and that you accept it, and that you'll be able to fix it next time, and you just can't. It takes a while to figure that out, though. It takes a while to say, this is not my fault. I'm not responsible for this behavior. That person's responsible for it, and I got to get out of here. That takes a while.
And not speaking to any relationship specifically, but when was a point for you that it just clicked that, this is not for me?
I've had some good days on this. My previous marriage, and honestly, I don't really talk about her very much because, so much of her life is spent talking about me. I just think it's sort of pathetic. And but I will acknowledge one day after I'd had my heart attack. A month after I had a heart attack, my mother died, and it's 12 years ago now. And the day of my mother's funeral, my previous, my third wife, basically had an explosion about something, and started to tell me, I'm out of this, I'm out of here. Again, I want a divorce, blah, 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 blah. Which we'd had the same conversation for, 8 years. And it was tiresome. And I realized at that moment that I was done with her, I was not going to end up in this relationship for much longer. And so somewhere under a year I was done. So.
Kayte, who you love dearly, your current wife, 25 years your junior.
My junior, yes. 26, actually.
26. What's, just from an age perspective, the biggest difference you've noticed in
the only thing that I would notice actually is just maybe a little bit more perspective. But Kayte's a wise girl. She's a knowledgeable person. She's self-aware. She's a whole human who was willing to, like, one of my favorite expressions about marriage, to lay her solitude beside my own. And so we are 2 individuals who have become a third identity. We've assumed another identity together, which is us together, and that's a very cool thing. And she's a complete human being, and beautiful in all the classic ways, but also humorous, funny, challenging. I mean, when we were together, when we first got together, she said to me, there was just suddenly a moment where she thought, oh my God, I want to have kids with you. And that she said it sort of surprised her, but she said her grandmother had told her years before that, she said, you'll know the man you want to marry when you realize you want to have children with him. And I thought, oh wow. So that was really cool. And I'd had visions of more children in my life anyway. And other than that, other than the fact that I don't run as fast as I used to, I don't feel any age difference between us. There's the there's the sort of empirical, oh yeah, this number is this number, that number is that number, that you just can't ignore sometimes. And there's a certain kind of inevitability about the fact that, well, this one means this, and this, and
Sure.
there are certain circumstances or consequences of us being together that we'll have to face at some point. But as it stands now, I feel like we are equals and really well matched.